So here's a sample lesson at Jeff Ritter Golf, the Ping Learning Center in Tempe, Arizona. A gentleman that came down from North Dakota for 1 hour and been struggling for a couple of years on trying to get some things out of his swing. His takeaway was always flat. Top of his backswing was always across the line, always coming down steep into the golf ball. Very much a slicer, lots of thin shots. Always felt very restricted into his follow-through. So he said he was committed to trying to make a change, and he was willing to put the work in. And if we take a look at what's happening here, draw a line for our plane line, and you see very early in the backswing, the club is definitely around and is too flat. The big thing that I pointed out to him in this case was that he didn't have any folding or hinging within his joints early in the swing. So right now I'm looking at the condition of the right elbow as it relates to the amount of hinge he's getting in the right and also the left wrist right here. So as he continues, the shaft gets a little bit flat. Once the shaft is flat, it has to be lifted the rest of the way to the top. So as he's lifting, he'd like to be in here somewhere, but as you can see, the club will cross the line and point to the right. When the club is across the line to the right, this is what we call a steep swinging angle. So as he transitions, you can see how vertical that shaft is. He's coming down steep, which means he's going to hit too much ground. Because he's going to hit too much ground, he has to stand up out of his posture. And one thing that's accompanying a steep swing shape very often is an opening club face. So as a result, he hits a lot of thin shots that fly up into the right. Because of that steep angle of descent in the opening face, his arms finish extremely high. You can see how much of a gap there is between the left arm and the side of his body right here. So what I wanted him to do was just try and do pretty much the exact opposite of what he was doing, but really view it from a point of trying to get himself out of what it feels like to make his golf swing and try and embrace doing something that feels quite radical in the hopes that we're actually going to get something that looks pretty normal. So what I wanted him to do first of all was try and get the feeling that he was going to fold up his joints extremely early, folding up the right elbow, folding up the right wrist, almost picking the club straight up and down. You can see what I'm doing over here on the left-hand side. I'm creating pretty much the exact opposite of what he was doing. Right elbow's folding back, right wrist is folding up, club head lifting straight off the ground. From here, I wanted him to make a swing where he felt like he was imagining his golf club was a rifle, and he was going to shoot that rifle over his shoulder at a target that was directly behind him. So we actually have a restroom that's right behind me, and I felt like he was going to try and get that club and actually point it through the restroom door, which would be the complete opposite of where he was pointing it, which was well to the right of his target. Coming into his follow-through, I wanted him to feel like he was very rounded and low with a closing face. So the image we used is trying to feel more Justin Leonard-like in the follow-through. And when I said that, he could really imagine a player that had the left elbow low and behind the right arm across or almost underneath the front shoulder, very much of a baseball style finish. So this was my demonstration for him, folding it up, pointing it behind, more laid off, and then swinging it much more low and around. Folding it up, point it behind, low and around. So after a little bit of work, this was the end of our 1 hour session. So you can see I'm going to have him fold it up with the elbow. He feels like he's going to point it behind and then swing it low and around. So we started compressing the ball more. The ball started flying more right to left. He got on some plane angles that he's never been on in his life, and this is all in the course of a 60-minute lesson. But the key to any good golf lesson is understanding what's happening now, not being afraid to feel something radical, to do the opposite, to not worry about what the contact's going to be like in the initial first couple of shots, and then work your way into something that's a heck of a lot different and pays off. So my message to golfers out there is that with the right coaching and the right diagnosis, that anybody can, in a very short period of time, make a swing change that is way beyond their greatest expectations. If you can let the coach do his thing, lead you through it, and you have an open mind through that process. So this is really great progress right here. And what we'll do is we'll draw a line kind of mirroring where he's been and where he's going. And you can see on the right-hand side here again just how much around this club swung going back. And now we can see over on the left-hand side how much more up the club is swinging. Now, he's not going to be folding up his right elbow nearly as much as I'd like him to still. But what you're going to see here is you're going to see the club head lifting more and going more up in the initial stages of his backswing. Right in here. So ideally I like to have this right elbow folded about twice as much. But now that club head's swinging up, up, up versus going around. Now obviously it's swinging up more than I like it to be long term. I gave him some drills to actually help smooth that transition out. If you got the right elbow bending back a little bit sooner, that certainly would have put it in a better spot. But look at the difference in the top of this backswing. And now his left arm is still on the same plane of his shoulders. The club is literally laid off. And for someone who spent their whole life pointing it over here to right field, that was a big, big accomplishment for him. Transitioning, look at how steep he was right here. And now he's coming back down, and he's actually perfectly on plane. The shaft running right down his right forearm versus being through the center of his chest. Notice how on the swing on the right, that steep swing plane makes him stand up. And look at the difference in his shaft angle at impact versus the address shaft angle. And look now as he's swinging, his chest is down more, the shafts are matching up. And then of course we see the big difference in the quality of the follow through, where his left elbow is, where his right arm is. And that's a big change to the end. The other thing you need to keep in mind is that these aren't changes that he's making just with practice swings. I mean, he's making this change at a playing speed, which means that he's going to be able to go home and very quickly see a lot of progress on the golf course, paying off in terms of the quality of his ball flight and also transferring into obviously a better golf score. Folding it up, pointing it behind, and swinging around. So that's been a sample lesson from Jeff Ritter Golf. You can find us at jeffrittergolf.com or at 480-695-2017. So come out to Arizona, spend an hour with us, and I guarantee you we can change your game around.